And now we are ready for the first roundtable of the afternoon. So we'll discuss green policies for a sustainable shift in manufacturing. Let me introduce our panelists. We do have Yves Paindaveine, Head of Sector Digitising European Industry Government at the DG Connect, the European Commission. We have Monica Duhem Delgado, Head of Global Economic Intelligence Unit at the Mexican Ministry of Economy. Sudarshan Rajuri, Technology Manager, Advanced Manufacturing Office of the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable at the US Department of Energy. Sylvie Pinsonneau, Senior Vice President for Strategy and Business Solution Investment Quebec, and Molebatsi, Vice Minister of Industry at the Government of Botswana. So thanks everyone, welcome. They're all connected remotely, and welcome here to the WMF in Chernobyl. Let me start reminding all the connected people and the people here in the conference room at Villa Erba that you do have a very simple channel to use to interact with our panelists. It's a very simple phone number, and the gallery can show it to you. As yesterday, it's +39 335 7085439. So we can see it, and all the people connected can use this to ask your question. So let me start immediately with Sudarshan Rajuri, because we know that industry knows very well how to transform raw materials in value-added products. But troubles begins when we look the other way around. So how we look today at circular models that have reusability and repair, for example, some of the key part of the process. Where are we now in your vision, and how can we move further? What do you make also of the 10 recommendations that you just heard?
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for having me. The great opportunity to share my thoughts. The 10 recommendations, as you can see, starting from the first one, which is the cultural barriers, and also some of the technology in terms of connecting digitalization and circularity. For example, sustainability or green or circular manufacturing, they've been there for some time now. One of the issues that we need to look at is how do we understand the forward value chain and also the reverse value chain. Understanding the forward value chain, converting the raw material into finished product is what we have been doing in manufacturing for many, many years. Starting from design to product realization, use and post-use across the life. But the reverse value chain is the one that we need to understand a little bit better. So that is where the value chain is not just in terms of economic, but also social value chain and environmental value chain. So how do we understand that? How do you train people who design products in a way that they are not just only looking at product, you also saw product as a service, manufacturing as a service, but also they need to make it trained and using these digital tools. When they're designing, they don't look only at form, function, and behavior, but also look at how do I design my product for society at large, what is the reverse value chain, what is the forward value chain, and more importantly, how this is creating not only technology products and how we produce products and introduce new products, but also look at the consumption. I think it was one of the things that Marco mentioned, sustainable consumption, the rate at which we consume and throw things. So this is where it's not simply about how many R's we are adding, reuse, recycle, remanufacturing, and reduce and things, but also the new business model of product as a service, manufacturing as a service. So that requires a lot of support from leadership, all the way coming from C-level, C-suite level people. They don't look at this as an additional cost, R&D as an additional expense, but they look at it as a value chain that they can create in creating new business model for products and services.
Well, let me move to Monica Duhem Delgado. What's your approach? What's the Mexican government approach when it comes to push industry towards a more circular and sustainable business model?
Thank you and congratulations on the report. I think it's very helpful for us government to have those guidelines and to start a conversation. We really need to push towards norms and standardization in those areas. In the Mexican government, what we're doing, we are pushing towards including our small and medium enterprises in the global value chain. And we are part of the strategy is creating capabilities among all those companies. So we are very strong on, and we do believe in digitalization. So we really want to create a foster a value chain ecosystem where the small and medium enterprises are knowledgeable about the importance of digitalization and the importance of the sustainable development goals. As you know, now in the Ministry of Economic, we do own, in a way, the agenda of the Sustainable Development Goals. So all the strategies and all the policies that we are pushing towards are in line with those goals. And also, as you know, we do now have developed governmental loans that are aligned with the sustainable goals. So we do want to strengthen the supply chain, to creating capabilities in the supply chain, and we're loaning money directly aligned with the sustainable goals. So I think that we're as you said, we need to start with creation of capabilities, and we are a manufacturing country. Big international global companies are looking to Mexico to enhance their supply chain, and they are asking for cleaner energy. They are asking for more productive and efficient way of producing. So, in a way, you were talking about development countries in the previous session, but in a way, if big companies are also pushing their suppliers to align with their goals, I think that we will move in the same line.
All right, let me move also to Molebatsi. Molebatsi, Vice Minister of Industry of the government of Botswana. How about your industrial policies when it comes to a greener industry, and what do you make of the 10 recommendations that the WMF presented today?
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to this session. Well, as a government in Botswana, we are busy identifying policies, legislation, and institutions requiring reform to enable us to make a conducive environment for a sustainable environment. We've just in Parliament, in the last session of Parliament, which ended in August, no, end of August this year, we passed quite a number of bills. We also came out with a number of strategies that actually are geared towards promoting the climate change. That are actually, we're working on aligning of our industrial development policies so that we have an integrated approach to achieving sustainability. Achieving sustainability, development, making sure that also change the mindset of people to make sure that our environment is also, we also take that is sustainable utilization of our natural resources.
All right, let me also move to Quebec with Sylvie Pinsonneau, Senior Vice President of Strategic and Business Solution Investment Quebec. I know, Sylvie Pinsonneau, that you launched recently, I think it was last spring, a broad strategic initiative to help companies become more green. What are the main pillars, and what was your approach?
Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to be with you today. It's a very important subject, and I love anything related to manufacturing and also circular economy. Like you've mentioned, we launched last March a big strategic initiative that came out of our strategic plan in Quebec, Canada. And the initiative really is there to encourage companies to adopt eco-friendly solutions and also clean tech solutions to increase competitiveness and also reduce the carbon footprint. And we want to become a major player in this shift towards a sustainable economy. So what we've done is we've developed this initiative in two main pillars that are built on two main pillars. The first one is really to develop the clean tech companies, the startups that are developing really powerful technologies that will go and be implemented in established companies. So we want to finance these companies, we want to support them, we want to make them shine on the international scene. And we do have a network on the international scene, so we are able to do that too. So we provide them with financing, but at the same time, really all the support they need to export and become a major player. The second pillar is really, we have a lot of different companies in Quebec. Most of them are quite innovative, and we want to make sure that they are adopting clean tech and also eco-friendly practices to make sure that they are more, how can I say, equipped to face the international competition and to give them a competitive edge, a competitive advantage. So what we do is we make sure that we help them with the financing, help them with the support they need to really go through that shift. And in terms of support, we've developed what we call the performance diagnostic of environmental performance, which can be used to see where the company is at right now and where it can go. And we are there. We have a lot of engineers from an industrial center that we've been attached to Investissement Québec. So we have a lot of engineers that can help these companies make that shift, implement the clean technologies, and at the same time, we provide them with financing facilities that are really very, very flexible to make sure that we share the risk with them. So the two pillars are really like developing the startups that are developing the clean technologies, and at the same time helping established companies implement technologies to make sure that we are increasing its competitiveness and reducing the carbon footprint.
Well, absolutely. I do think that also the diagnostic tools is absolutely relevant, because one of the most puzzling aspects of all of this is how to measure the potential impact of businesses, industries, how to measure the environmental risks, and so on. So we are looking for a way of giving the metrics to this, and also in Europe, this is one of the biggest themes. If Paindaveine, again, Head of Sector of Digitizing European Industry Governance at the DG Connect. Let me start with asking you, how do you see the support, the help that technology can give to the industrial sector to move in the direction of creating a more circular economy?
Yes, thank you, Andrea, for the great question. I would like to thank you for having me here, and to thank also the World Manufacturing Foundation for the great events that you put together, as well as the report. We heard Michael Teich say that we need digital technologies. This is our best tool to actually innovate, to make our industrial process more efficient, more sustainable. If we look at what we can do, is actually we see basically that we need to be more efficient in using energy and the resources. So we reduce our carbon footprint and we get a smarter use of materials. We also need to ensure that the more and more circularity, recycle, find substitute for material. All these are strategies: reduce, rethink, repair, recycle, recover would be there. At the European Commission, we have in fact set up and launched three different programs to innovate, to deploy, and to work also with the European countries around common targets. To innovate, we launched a program which is called Horizon Europe. It's the new research and innovation program. It covers all the strategic research areas. And here I would like to mention that we have a specific twin transition, green and digital transition, where we are focusing on how companies can actually go towards circularity and adopt digital technologies in the manufacturing setup, for example. We work in partnership with industry, with academia, let me just name two, Made in Europe and Planet for People, which are two public-private partnerships which we have set up. But that is not enough in terms of innovation. We also need to think long-term. That is, we need to have the core digital technologies of tomorrow. We heard Marco Theis say that ICT, digital technologies, have an energy budget. Well, we have to think on how the next generation of core digital technologies can help to achieve more circularity and to also consume less energy. If I take, for example, where we are good at in Europe is the progress that have been made with neuromorphic chips. That is, it can dramatically reduce the energy budget for AI, for artificial intelligence learning. So that would really help here. Deploy, we have also launched a Digital Europe program to build the digital capacity across Europe. Rapidly here, we are looking into manufacturing data space so that the data, and that was also a key point of the report, where the data can actually now enable new business models and make it more circular. Blockchain infrastructure deployment. These are essential if we want to track the use of the material or the use of energy. Or a digital innovation hub, as mentioned by Mrs. Scioli yesterday in her keynote, which are organizations that we want to deploy all across Europe to make sure that any SMEs could actually get the benefits of adopting digital technologies for themselves. And lastly, is our role as a facilitator to work also with the European countries. And here we set up the digital decade with clear targets by 2030. Where do we want to be in terms of skills? People are important, and this is also another very good point of the report. SME, in terms of their level of digitalization, where we want to increase the level of digitalization of the SMEs, or even the take-up of innovative technologies such as AI. So you see, it's really innovate, deploy, make sure that we collaborate with member states, which is the core of our action in terms of the digital technologies.
Well, Yves Paindaveine, thank you for that. And ladies and gentlemen, this panel is about the policies, the most effective policies to push the transition in the direction of a more circular economy and circular manufacturing. But sometimes policies come top-down with new targets that then they indicate where we want to go, but sometimes lacks in showing the map. How can we get there? And Yves Paindaveine, here in Europe, there's a large discussion about the Fit for 55, the new measures. Clearly, we're facing an emergency and we have to rush. We've got no time, so we understand why these targets are so challenging. At the same time, broad sectors of the industry are asking you guys, how do you expect industries to adapt, and what will you do to make it possible to reach those targets? Yves Paindaveine, what's your answer?
Thank you, Andrea. Well, indeed, you have heard that as European Commission, our role is to set targets, but also to make sure that there is also the correct incentives. And that was the role, indeed, of the climate law, which was adopted in June this year. Typically, we want by 2050 to be climate neutral, and we want to reduce CO2 emission by 55%. Therefore, the Fit for 55. We have a circular economy action plan as well. We launched a number of processes altogether. One that I would like to mention on how, together with industry, we want to see how the transition pathways could be, we could go through those transition pathways. This is a process which has been launched by the new industrial strategy, which was launched in April this year. And here, that's really how are we going to the green transition, climate neutrality, digital leadership. We look We work with them together. But that's not only at the level of policy making. We also are providing finance in order to help this transition. Marco Teich mentioned that green is an avenue for growth, but as well will come with a cost. So with the European Green Deal, we have also proposed a number of measures to mobilize the funds and the private finance. Recently, we also adopted a taxonomy. That is, we have clarified which investment could be qualified as green investment. So what we want to do here is we want to incentivize the investors, other than the European institutions such as the EIB, so that they would green their investment as well. And then we also launched the Next Generation EU, a program launched last year, 750 billion euro, to support the short-term recovery from the crisis, but also to build the long-term resilience. And as part of this long-term resilience, that is a circular economy. So you see here, most EU countries have already submitted their plans. We have looked at them. Some of them have already started and they have already received the first payment to put in place the recovery and resilience. And we have clearly overshoot even the targets that we gave ourselves to Next Generation EU, which was a 20% for digital and 37% for green. So that's the kind of things that we are also doing.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again, Yves Paindaveine. Unfortunately, we do have time constraint, unprecedented time constraint. We cannot afford to make wrong decisions, especially in terms of policies. So, Sudasan Rashuri, how about how to develop these policies and how to measure their impact? Unfortunately, in the policy space, we do not have digital twins, as in Industry 4.0 they already have. We have some simulation tools. But what's your idea on how to approach, how to make the best policies and the best decision today?
Yeah, this is a very important question. When you define policies, how much of those policies are well informed based on science? So we can give targets, but we also need to give the rationale behind the targets. So what kind of measurements? So what are the metrics? For example, what you don't or cannot measure cannot be improved. So you need to understand what is that you need to measure, how much you are measuring, and what is the impact of that in your business model. For example, the institute that I am managing, funded by DOE, called Smart Manufacturing Innovation Institute, we are looking at energy as a currency. If you look at energy as way of looking at your product realization, how effectively and efficiently you can manufacture your product and services. So that will give you an idea that you're not only worried about how I'm shaping my materials, what kind of requirements that I'm meeting for engineering requirements, but also bring in the notion of how energy, what is the embedded energy that you can use. So from that, one of the things that you have worked with many of the small, medium enterprises is if you tell them, here is what you can do for the forward problem. If you do all this optimization, you can reduce energy by 5%. You can reduce your predictive maintenance. You can reduce your resource efficiency. You can improve your resource efficiency. But the inverse problem is what the small, medium enterprises are worried about. If somebody, the plant manager comes and tells them, reduce your water by 10%, I look for that opportunity. So that is where the digitalization comes and helps. In terms of synthesize, how do I realize my product effectively and efficiently, and looking both at the forward problem and the inverse problem. So that is where I think measurement and standards and protocols are very important in that. So the second problem many of the SMEs talk about in terms of what do I measure and what is the impact, there are a lot of subjectivity in many of the things that we are telling them. You reduce this target, reduce that target. Most of them are very subjective in nature. So we need to remove the subjectivity. That's where science has to come in and help us understanding, not only removing the subjectivity, but also the uncertainty. So the problem for SME is They want to invest, but they want to understand the uncertainty in their models, what is the risk involved, how the risk is distributed across the supply network, what is the forward value chain, what is the reverse value chain, and how they can understand this much better. So this is, I think, one of the success stories that we are trying to build in Department of Energy, have instituted many institutes, not only, I think Rebecca mentioned Remade, there are other 5 other institutes, including cybersecurity. The one that we are going to institute a new institute is on industrial decarbonization. So where are the opportunity for industrial decarbonization, both in process chemistry, but also reducing, because how much of fuel is burned for process heating, how much of that can be effectively and efficiently managed. So this is where I think the new technologies have to penetrate in the old manufacturing industries like cement manufacturing. So they have not used new technologies in the past 50, 60 years. And we have a project to improve the performance of cement manufacturing. So these are the kind of things that we need to understand, how policies and science are totally connected. So they are well informed. Policies should be well informed by science and measurement science. And then you need to look at what kind of deployment strategies you need to have.
Absolutely, and you were mentioning some of the hard-to-abate sectors of the industrial space, like cement, like steels, and so on. So, Monica Duhem Delgado, how do you approach this? Because it's really challenging for government to make it attractive for companies to go in this direction, to create the right incentives, and also to give the right measures and targets, which are not perceived by subjectivity, but because they are the objective parameters that they have to follow.
Yes, and we are now working hand in hand with the academia. We do need to understand what are those key performance indicators. We need to adapt those key performance indicators within our policies, because if not, it will be more difficult to really measure the impact of the policies. I do believe that we do not have time right now. For instance, we're working on as you know, Mexico's exports in manufacturing, 41% are in the automotive industry. So if we really want to stay competitive in this industry that is changing, that now is migrating to electric vehicles, we need to work with the academia. We need to understand what are the needs that the industry will have and is starting to have. And so in one hand, we're working with the academia to target all those key performance indicators. And we're also working with them to creating capabilities in order to, on the periphery supply chain, so we can be much more sustainable and productive, understanding how the industry is changing. So yes, I do believe that it's important to work with the academia. I do believe that it is important to understand these key performance indicators. And I do believe that we need to work as government in policies to have an harmonized standards in order to create a pressure on the global arena towards having sustainable results. So we are working now in the Ministry of Economy on analyzing the standards, on changing our standards and have them aligned with best practices, standards worldwide, so we can push the manufacturing and business to shift towards more development and sustainable manufacturing ways.
Yeah, in a nutshell, Monica Duhem Delgado, you mentioned the automotive, which is one of the most exposed industries to the transition with the electrification of engines and so on. For Mexico, automotive is a relevant sector. So what's the reaction and how are you facing the challenge also that these companies do have if they won't be able to transform, reinvent themselves in a very short time space?
So that's interesting, because now the traditional supply chain and manufacturing business now need to hire and to hire other type of services. So what we're doing is we're investing as a government in design labs. We're investing in different design labs so they can create the new products, technology products that will be embedded within the electric cars. So as a strategy for a government is to create strong design labs that will not only serve the Mexican automotive industry, but also to export all those designs for fab labs all over the world. And we're focusing also on creating more effective software in order to be able to attain this industry. Also, something that is very important in the electric industry is that we need also engineers. We have lowered our tariff in order to comply with the demand of electric vehicles. So now we can import electric vehicles before starting really producing them. But we need engineers to know how to give services to all these new electric manufacturing, electric cars, service in general. So what we're doing is also we are working with the academia in order to create capabilities among service providers in order to be able not only to have an electric vehicle cars, but also to give them services to avoid what we've seen in technology, that we do bring the technology in our countries, but then when this technology is not okay, or we need to give them service, we need to also have engineers and technical people ready to give service to these new technologies.
Absolutely. And one of the critical areas in the Marco Taj presentation was about financial incentive and financial resources for the transition. Let me move back to Sylvie Pinsonneau to understand, how are you approaching this? What are the most effective financial vehicles that you discovered can create more value and limiting the use of public resources? And how do you combine different public programs in this sense?
Yeah, yes, that's a good question. Well, I've talked about our big initiative called Compétivaire, and we've set aside 375 million as a target to finance companies, like I said, the startups, but also the established companies that are implementing technologies in their companies. So we've developed two financial solutions. The first one is really a lending tool for companies with a moratorium on capital that is at least 4 years, because we want to make sure that we're sharing risk with the companies that we are supporting. And also we've developed a venture cap tool to invest in startups to make sure that they are developing themselves and becoming a major player. So I'd like to these are our financial tools, but I was listening to the lady that was just talking before me, and I'd like to mention that in Quebec, Canada, we are quite, I wouldn't say lucky, but we have a great environment, because 99% of our electricity is clean because we have hydroelectricity. That's really, really a big competitive advantage. And if you combine this with the fact that we have key mineral resources that are really useful to manufacturing anything related to electric vehicles, then Quebec is really well positioned to be a major player in this field. We already have, I've talked about startups, but we already have financed and invested in a nice company called Lion, which produces school buses, electric school buses, and also electric trucks. We've invested also in a company called GGSat, which develops like satellites, but at the same time, these satellites can really minimize any leakage coming from GHG emission for the petroleum companies. And this is really dominant players that we've supported also through our working environment in Quebec, because we feel we have an abundance of advantages. So, yeah.
Well, those advantages are difficult to replicate in many countries, so you're lucky and you recognize it. But yeah, let me move also to Botswana with Molebatsi to understand what's your policy address, and do you have any specific program to enhance a more green and sustainable industry in the country?
Yes, thank you very much. Just let me start by saying that as a country, we have a vision. We have Vision 2036. And in Vision 2036, we are talking about a sustainable and optimal use of our natural resources, transforming our economy so that we uplift our people's livelihoods. And underneath the vision, which is Vision 2036, we also have the Ministry of Energy has got integrated resource planning. That's where now we apart from the policies that we have, like the climate change policy, we come up with ways in which we can, using our resources to uplift our people, develop our economy. And one of the biggest resources we have in our countries is the sun. We have 6 to 8 hours of sunlight per day. We one of those countries that have got abundance of sunlight, and that resource that we need to use so that we generate clean energy. We also now mainly dependent on carbon fuels for our energy generation, which we are moving. We actually targeting that by 2036, we would have an energy mix of renewable energies, about 50% of renewable energy in our energy mix by 2036. That's part of our Vision 2036. So we are moving there. We are aligning. I'm at the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry. We are aligning our industrial development policies such that they also talk to sustainable development, so sustainable environment. They talk to sustainable utilization of natural resources. We are a mining company, we are diamond producers. As we do beneficiation of our copper, diamonds, we need to do in such a way that it talks to the environment. We are also for the businesses, for the companies, for the manufacturers, we've made it easy for them to this. We've linked our licensing to environmental impact assessment, which is hassle free, but very, very, very much linked to making sure that our environment is not harmed. So we have quite a number of policies, like I said, that we passed through the last parliament, that we are sure that through them and through the government or presidential reset agenda, where we say that we need to change the mindset of the people. We need to go now towards digitization as we now diversify our economy and talk about value chains in agriculture, in mining, digitization leading to sustainable environment is our objective going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And I would like to ask the panelists in this wrap-up round of questions to give us your final takeaway, starting from recommendation number 1 from Marco Taish and the WMF Foundation, which was, we have to create a circular mindset. It's all about changing vision, changing culture, which will be the most effective tools to get in that direction, starting, for example, from the way we plan and we produce products and services for circular manufacturing. And with this, I start again with Sudarshan Rashuri.
The most important thing that you can take away from all the discussion we had, if you talk to many industries, the first thing for them is shareholders value. We need to change that mindset from shareholders to stakeholders value. Who are the stakeholders here? Society at large, and also the people who are producing the products. So we need to look at that from the point of view of how we are improving the stakeholders value, not just only the shareholders value. That mindset will change the way that they are looking at not cost, quality, throughput, but also look at environmental impact, societal impact. Many such efforts have been done, but unfortunately, unless you put an incentives for them in terms of, for example, SEC reports looking for how you are producing your product in a very environmental sensible way, if that part of the discussion for C-suite, it will automatically change. It will come not only the top down, but also bottom up. Worker will understand, am I producing something that is really useful? Is it going to improve the quality of life? Or it is just another technology that being introduced whether it is a technology obsolescence or a planned obsolescence. So just stakeholders should be looked at as a stakeholder value.
Okay, this is a very broad theme, from shareholder to stakeholder capitalism. Let me move to Monica Duhem Delgado. What do you make of this? What's your final take?
Well, I do believe that we need to tackle this in a holistic approach, and we need to share the common goals through all the government ministries. Because if we really want to impact, as you said, it's part of the consumer. All stakeholders must be aligned, and in that sense, all the strategies must be aligned within the different policies that we're pushing as a government.
All right, fantastic. Also, thanks for your synthesis. And let me move to Yves Paindaveine to understand the European point of view.
Many thanks, Andrea. I think if we want to change consumer behavior, we have to look at which are the externalities today, which are not properly priced. And when I'm thinking of externalities, I'm thinking of we should give a proper price to carbon, but also a price for the social or the working environment. And that should be integrated in the price of the goods. So that would provide the incentive. I'm a big believer of this. That means we probably also need to make sure that the price at the border have to be adjusted to avoid that we would import goods where the externalities will not be properly priced. The Commission proposed a carbon border adjustment mechanism, for example, for this. So I'm really also a deep believer that as European Union, we have to work very closely with the European countries. And that's a work that we do every day. We try to make sure that we have all the countries on board.
All right, but just in a nutshell, some says that what we are experiencing in terms of energy prices is in a way also consequences of some of the measures that have been taken in terms of reducing investment in fossil fuels or in enhancing just renewables, and now the system is pretty rigid in answering to a pent-up demand connected to reopening of the economy. What do you make of this, and isn't there the risk that public opinion will perceive that the transition has a negative impact on their lives when they have, for example, to pay a higher energy bill at the end of the month?
Yes, my understanding of what is the current problem is that there has been, first of all, a huge increase in the demand for gas, which has raised the price for the fossil fuels energy, for gas itself. And because the energy sector is also structured along the line of the marginal cost of production, that is the cost of the last unit producing energy, also electricity prices are going up. For one part, because they are produced by gas, and for the other part, because if we look at a fully decarbonized energy supply, which would be the nuclear energy, is not properly accounted for. But that is a bit of my own personal view. If we look more into the future, into which kind of innovation can we bring, here we need to look into new sources of energy. And that would be, yes, there is electricity, there might be hydrogen, and if we produce electricity and hydrogen in a way which is carbon neutral, and where we can store that energy, these are the kind of advances of progress which would benefit the whole of humanity.
All right, thanks a lot, Molebatsi.
Thank you very much. What's the question again?
Well, what's your final takeaway? What you take away of the discussion and how you look at the future, what the next steps will be from you.
Well, we as a developing country, we're with a manufacturing industry that is still at an infancy stage. Our efforts to drive sustainability have room for improvement. We therefore would like to invite the developed economies and the global stakeholders to join hands with us, the Botswana government, or in Africa in general, to drive the circular economy development. We also, like I said, we have abundance of sunshine, and we really want to invite stakeholders from outside Africa to come and partner with us in our countries, especially in Botswana. We're making that Green Deal call. We are saying, let's come and accelerate the green transition and energy partnership with Africa. That's what I can say for now. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, Sylvie Pinsano.
Yes, I think I will conclude with what I usually say to most businesses I meet, that now is the time to act. Now is the time to be in action, because becoming more green is not a nice to have, it's a must have. The customer will want you to become more of a green company. Your workforce will want that, and it will be a great attracting tool to become more a green company. But at the same time, it's more profitable. It's going to give you a competitive edge. So there's no excuse not to move now. So that's my conclusion.
All right, thank you. Thanks a lot. So it was great comparing different points of view from different countries and part of the world on this. So thanks again, Yves Paindaveine, Monica Duhem, Delgado, Sudra Sanrashuri, Sylvie Pinsano, Molebatsi. Thank you. A round of applause from Villa Erba in Cernobbio.